This was my first day on the boat, and if you take a close look at that compass binnacle, you can see it's kind of a rough aluminum. And what you can't see is that the sunshade is cracked and doesn't work, and that really bugs me. So it's off to the lure building workshop to do some sort of repair for this thing. I'm going to take a little bit of this nylon sailcloth that I have from an old sunfish sailboat I had, and I'm going to cut a piece out big enough to patch this thing. And I'm going to use this as sort of like fiberglass cloth, and I'll trim it a little bit. And I'm going to take an 80 grit sanding pad and just really rough the inside of this up. And of course I'm doing the inside because that won't show. Unfortunately, the crack does show on the outside, but that's just going to have to be showing a little character, that's all. I'm going to wipe this down with some denatured alcohol. And then we need to mix some resin. Now, I'm going to use 5-minute epoxy. Now that's kind of crazy, but what I've done is I've cut the little connector between the two plungers so that I can squeeze one before I squeeze the other. And I'm going to put out 3 milliliters of this stuff, and then I'm going to mix some acetone with it, really thin it out, and then I'll put in the second half, mix that up, and then I should have a really low viscous mix that I can saturate the cloth with. All right, so while the plastic part sets, I'm gonna go ahead and paint this. This is the aluminum part of that cowling, and what I've done is I've sanded it with a 120 grit sandpaper and wiped it down with alcohol. The little rim on here, you see it's black. I taped that off and I painted it with Plasti-Dip, that rubber spray, because that's the collar that actually fits over the outside diameter of the compass and kind of grips and stays there. To paint this, first I'm gonna hit it with some white primer, and then once that's dry, I'm gonna hit it with a few coats of this appliance epoxy paint. Let's go outside and paint. All right, so while the paint dries, we'll play around with this thing a little more. Resin is set up, and it's not going to be completely hard, like sandable hard, for a day or two, but it's hard enough that I can trim off the little excess cloth that I put on. Now what I need to do is kind of formalize this ridge a little bit. You can see there's a groove here where this little tooth rides in and has to catch on the edge here. So I have to make an edge that's a little more squared off, and I got to do that on both sides, and hopefully it's big enough that it'll catch and won't slip. I'm grinding back the repairs I made to these edges. Both the edges were broken, and I patched them with industrial epoxy. Got a nice sharp edge to it, and I think this will catch pretty good. Alright, so I just need to do the same thing on this edge, because when it goes back down it has to catch to push it all back in. Pretty happy with the way the little edge came out. I wanted to smooth out the inside of this slot, so I cut this nail file down so it fit right in there, and just smoothing it out a bit and getting any of the resin I might have got in there and anything that might catch. Unfortunately, I didn't have any black resin. I couldn't find any, so gray will have to do. So this goes together like this, and when you pull this open, it catches on the first ridge and pulls it out, and then when you push it closed, it catches on the back ridge, and then it all sort of folds up inside that aluminum case. And I'm ready to put this stuff on. Let's see how it goes. I'm guessing it's going to take 2 or 3 coats, but so I'll just let it hang there for like 2 or 3 days, and it'll be ready to reinstall on the boat. All right, so I had to make one additional modifications to this after I did my slot improvement here and the little stops, and I had to make another stop out of aluminum. It's set up good. I glued down with some 5-minute epoxy. Here, I should probably do the reveal on the paint job. Check that out. It just came out really super shiny, super nice. It still smells like wet paint though, so I have to be a little careful with it. Right here, there's a little tiny like rivet embedded in there, and that little tab of aluminum has to catch there to keep the cover from just flopping all the way out. So we're ready to assemble. Let's see what this is going to look like. There it goes. Whew. All right, that was a little scary. All right, so this falls out and catches. Oh, perfect. It looks like it's the aluminum catching right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grind back the back edge of that aluminum. All right, so I had a little bit of a setback. I cracked it again. I'm using this UV light to set the UV epoxy resin that I put in here with the same kind of cloth. And now it's just a matter of trimming it. What a Frankenstein. It had a crack right there, and that's the old crack right there. So now we're reinforced. And I went ahead and ground down that back edge on the little aluminum lip. So I think now we can assemble. Oh, all right. All right, it's scraping on the paint a little bit, but I think after a while, that'll scrape away and it'll work. All right, a little bit of engineered angler know-how, lure making techniques to resolve some of my sailboat repair and improvement. Can't wait to put this on the boat.